Hello everyone and welcome to the first game we'll be covering from the Freestyle Chess Grand Slam final in South Africa. It's the final event of the Freestyle Champions Chess Tour and it is one that everyone wants to win. There's a lot of money on the line and of course, well, it's just a new type of chess that people enjoy playing when they've mastered every opening there is. So if you're a beginner, you probably don't enjoy freestyle chess. For them who really know everything, it's something that they can, just come, enjoy, not prepare for a tournament, not study lines and lines. They are presented with a position they will play. They have half an hour or sometimes an hour to analyze it. They prepare for it, and this is one such position that they will play. So it's a pretty interesting position because pretty much all of the pieces are where they should be, except for, let's say, this bishop, this knight, the queen, and the king. All of the other pieces are, where they are in a normal chess game. So maybe you can use that to maybe draw from some of the opening knowledge that you have. But yeah, I was very much interested in how Javoker will do, as he now won the FIDE World Cup. He defeated Wei Yi in the finals. Magnus Carlsen, also one of those players that have won the FIDE World Cup. But yeah, Javoker is the youngest to ever win it at the age of 19 years old. Now he faces Magnus Carlsen here. Let's check it out. These are rapid games, 10 minutes per player. So let's see how they do. Javoker with white opens with pawn to e4, and Magnus replies with pawn to e5. So both players start by advancing the pawn in front of their queen. c3, preparing pawn to d4, and Magnus strikes immediately with pawn to d5. Now, there's a knight on d1, so the knight could come to c3, but as c3 was played, it makes sense to do this. The knight will not be able to go after the pawn, even though it's not like in the Scandinavian, you don't have a queen on d8 that the queen comes to d5, but still, queen can come to b5 with check. You can recapture. So some of the rules still apply. We have e captures on d5. And now Magnus has two ways to go about this. He could sacrifice a pawn, something like this, and then just continue playing. Or he could go win back his pawn right away. He goes for it right away. We have queen to b5 check, queen to e2, and queen captures on d5. Now the knight on c3 is impossible. So the queen is very well placed on d5. But knight to e3 is possible, something you don't see very often. And the queen has to retreat. We have queen back to d7 and knight to f3. Okay, pawn to c5, fighting against pawn to d4, but not really, as that is a move that Javoker plays, even though knight to c4 seems like a really, really annoying move to deal with. For some reason, he didn't enjoy it. Maybe he was worried about pawn to e4, maybe some sort of knight f6, quickly castling, and then, okay, but it's not like the white king is on e1. You can also castle to safety right away. Just in case this is the first game I'm covering of the event, this looks weird if you're watching chess 960 for the first time, but it's only relevant that you remove all of the pieces in between the king and the rook, and then you can castle. It doesn't matter if the king is here, 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 or even here. You just, or I don't think it can be here, but even if it's here, the king just goes all the way to g1. The rook goes over it and you nicely castle, which you'll see. So yeah, knight to c4 could be fairly annoying, but pawn to d4 right away. E captures, we have c captures, and now knight to f5. Okay, the bishop on b1 nicely defends the knight. We have knight to c6, defending the d4 pawn, and pawn to b3. Now preparing bishop to b2, but also bishop to a3 could be very annoying for Magnus. So he does develop the knight. He goes knight g to d6. First, bishop d6 does seem like the way to go, covering that a3 square. But again, it just looks weird allowing this trade. But yeah, even though you lost the bishop pair, the queen guarding a3, not a bad way to go about it. But Magnus went knight g to e7, just feels more natural. And Javoker says, all right, bishop to a3. How are you going to fix this? How are you castling? How are you doing anything? Well, okay, Magnus goes queen d8. He threatens to pick up the knight, and Javoker just says knight 3 captures on d4. And now it doesn't matter if you capture on f5, then the other knight takes its place, or you capture on d4, also not really relevant, as bishop captures on e7 happens. So bishop captures on f5 is what Magnus goes for. We have knight captures, again keeping this triple threat on the e7 knight. pawn to g6, threatening the knight, and knight captures on e7. We have knight captures, and now by far the best move, bishop to e4, taking advantage of that b7 pawn being attacked and the rook on a8 being undeveloped. So Magnus goes bishop to d6, hoping to get the rook into the game and maybe trade bishops, but no, just rook to d1, and Magnus doesn't really have a move here. This is already Resigned's territory, and while you could defend with something like knight to c8, just bishop captures on b7, and that's it. Rook b8, you remove the defender of the bishop, you capture on d6, and there's no move you can play. So after rook d1, Magnus decided to give up his queen for the bishop and rook. He played bishop captures on a3, rook captures on d8 check, we have rook captures, and now bishop captures on b7. And this is now the situation, bishop, queen, and rook versus rook, bishop, and rook and knight. So it's basically a rook and the knight for the queen. Knight to f5, Magnus will now try to castle and organize some sort of a fortress. We have castles, and bishop back to e4, trying to open up the black king's position. We have knight to d4, attacking the white queen, queen to c4, and now rook f to e8. And yes, Javoker is up in material, but Magnus does have some counterplay. We have bishop to d5, putting pressure on the f7 pawn, knight to e2 with check, king to h1, and now rook e7. And it seems like Magnus is holding everything, but all of a sudden bishop captures on f7 with check, saying, okay, you take the bishop, I'm going to capture the knight on e2. Magnus says, nope, king to g7, and we have bishop back to d5. We have pawn to a5, trying to get the bishop to b4, pawn to g3. We have bishop to b4, king to g2, and now rook to d6, trying to double up on the d file. We have rook to d1, and here knight to c3, attacking the rook and the bishop. Also, you could consider just doubling up on the d file, but this seems to be more than enough. We have rook d3, now forcing a capture on d5, otherwise rook captures on c3 is coming. Knight captures on d5, we have rook captures on d5, and now rook d to e6. Magnus gains control of the e file, but Javoker just plays rook to d3, and he was in this position on move 31 that Magnus Carlsen resigned the game, as there is nothing more to be done here. He is below 1 minute, and there really is no plan here. The only weakness Javoker has in the position is this f2 pawn, and while you could go after, let's say, go something like rook e2, you want to try bishop to e1, after rook d8, there is very little you can do. You're just too slow. For example, bishop to e1, rook to g8 with check. You can, if you go to h6, then queen to h4 is mate in 1. You would have to go to f6, and then a couple of checks. Let's say queen f4 check, king to e6, queen to c4 with check, king to f6, rook to f8 with check, king to g7, queen to g8 with check, king comes to h6, only move, and now rook f4 with some very nasty mate threats. Also, the rook now covers the f2 pawn. So that's really all there is to it. If you try harassing the queen, let's say queen f7, and that's it. One more move, and that's it. Rook h4, king to g5, queen to f4 will be checkmate. So it takes a couple of moves, but of course Magnus knows that this is unavoidable. So the best move here is definitely to resign. So yeah, not a great start for Magnus of the 3-day chess Grand Slam final, but a great start for Javoker Sindarov. I don't know who Sindarov is facing in round 2. Magnus faces Fabiano Caruana. So we're going to cover some games. I thought you guys would enjoy this one. It's a World Cup winner versus Magnus Carlsen, so why wouldn't we show that? But yeah, Javoker takes it, and seemingly with ease. We'll see if he's able to manage this throughout all of the event. But taking down Magnus like this, that's definitely a great start. So yeah, I really hope you guys enjoyed it. I would like to thank Balfino.ch, Nicolas Rivard, Eddie Sphere, Brian Pratt, and David Gasparian for a contribution to my channel. Thank you a lot. I really appreciate it. As usual, you can check 2 of my previous videos here. Thank you for watching, and I will see you soon, continuing to check up on your wonderful suggestions and whatever else happens in the chess world. Thank you all. I will see you soon, and have an excellent rest of your day. Do use that hashtag recommendation or suggestion, whichever you prefer. I really like it when you guys do that. See you soon.